Expand your vocabulary with our Core 2000 Words ebook. It's free and packed with essential expressions that you'll use on a daily basis. Start building your vocabulary today. Click the link in the description below to download your free Portuguese ebook before it's gone.
Welcome to PortuguesePod101.com Português em 3 minutos. The fastest, easiest and most fun way to learn Brazilian Portuguese. Oi, meu nome é Paloma. Prazer. Hi, I'm Paloma. Nice to meet you. In this series, we are going to learn basic Portuguese expressions. It's super easy and it takes only 3 minutes. It also takes only 3 sentences. In this lesson, you're going to learn how to introduce yourself in Portuguese. It may vary a little depending on the person you're talking to. Let's first take a look at the most common way. Oi, meu nome é Paloma. Prazer em conhecê-lo. Hi, I'm Paloma. It's a pleasure to meet you. Oi, meu nome é Paloma. Prazer em conhecê-lo. Start by saying, Oi, meu nome é. Then say your name. Oi, meu nome é Paloma. Finally, say, prazer em conhecê-lo. Oi, meu nome é Paloma. Prazer em conhecê-lo. Please pay attention to the end of the sentence. This version is only used if you're introducing yourself to a man, because you say conhecê-lo. If you're introducing yourself to a woman, you should use conhecê-la. So the full sentence to introduce yourself to a woman would be Oi, meu nome é Paloma. Prazer em conhecê-la. Here's a quick tip to help you if you don't remember which article to use in the end of the sentence. Just use prazer. Prazer. Oi, meu nome é Paloma. Prazer. Oi, meu nome é Paloma. Prazer. Let's check what you've learned. Based on who I'm talking to, try to remember how to introduce yourself. Oi, meu nome é Paloma. Prazer. Oi, meu nome é Paloma. Prazer em conhecê-la. Oi, meu nome é Paloma. Prazer em conhecê-lo. When introducing yourself in Brazil, it's polite to shake hands. This is used in formal situations. In a more informal situation, people may kiss you on the cheek. The number of kisses may vary from person to person or region. Some people only kiss once, but others may kiss you 2 or even 3 times. Now it's time for Paloma's point. If you're introducing yourself to a group, you should say either conhecê-los or conhecê-las. If the group is all men or a mix of men and women, say conhecê-los. If the group is woman only, use conhecê-las. Do you know how to say thank you in Portuguese? You'll learn how to say this and many other words in the next lesson. Tchau, tchau! See you then! Welcome to PortuguesePod101.com's Português em 3 minutos, the fastest, easiest and most fun way to learn Brazilian Portuguese. In the last lesson, we learned how to thank people by saying muito obrigado and how to reply with de nada. Today, we'll learn some common ways to say hello and goodbye in Brazil. Vocês estão prontos? Are you ready? Then, let's start! The most common informal greeting is Oi! Oi. Oi means hello. We say it when we meet someone. You may also say olá. That also means hello. Olá. Another common greeting that you hear a lot in Brazil and at PortuguesePod101.com is tudo bem. Tudo bem? Tudo bem means is everything fine? We use it usually together with oi or olá to greet someone. Altogether, you can say Oi, tudo bem? Oi, tudo bem? Tudo bem is a question, but it can also be the answer. Just say tudo bem, which means everything is fine. At the end, you can add e você. And you? Tudo bem, e você? Tudo bem. E você? When it's time to leave, we have a couple of different ways to say goodbye. You may say tchau. Tchau means bye. Tchau. You can also say see you soon. Até mais. Até mais. You also have adeus, which means goodbye, but you usually use it when the person is leaving to somewhere far or you're not going to meet for some time. Adeus. You learned a lot of new phrases today. Let's review with a quiz. What do you say in these situations? Oi. Olá. Oi, tudo bem? Tudo bem. E você? Tchau. Até mais. Adeus. You now know lots of ways to greet people in Portuguese. Now it's time for Paloma's point. You often hear people saying tudo bom instead of tudo bem in Brazil. Bem means well and bom means good, but you usually use both in the same situations, although tudo bem is more grammatically correct. During the next lesson, we'll talk about the phrase Desculpa, você fala inglês? Do you know what it means? Learn about it and much more in the next Português em 3 Minutos lesson. Tchau, tchau! Oi, meu nome é Paloma. Hi everybody, I'm Paloma. Welcome to PortuguesePod101.com's Português em 3 Minutos, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn Portuguese. In the last lesson, we learned the most common forms of greetings in Portuguese. Do you remember them? In this lesson, we are going to learn a very useful phrase. Do you speak English? If you find yourself in a situation where you need assistance in English, this phrase can be a lifesaver. And because you're asking it in Portuguese, you can be sure that everyone will understand what you're saying, even if their answer is no. Here's the informal way to say it. Você fala inglês? Você fala inglês? In Portuguese, verbs change depending on the pronoun that is used. Please notice the word você in the beginning of the sentence. This is the informal way to say you. The next word is the verb falar, which means to speak. Because it's referring to você, it is conjugated to você fala. And you probably recognize inglês to be English. Você fala inglês? To learn how to properly conjugate verbs in Portuguese, like falar, please look at our beginner series on PortuguesePod101.com. You can find very detailed grammar lessons and resources there. If you're talking with young people or someone the same age as you can add a small word to sound more natural. Moço, meaning boy, and moça, girl. It is common to address the people around you like this. Moço, moço. Moça, moça. Moço, você fala inglês? Moça, você fala inglês? Now we'll see how to talk with a person older than you. It is very easy. You just need to change você into o senhor or a senhora. That means sir and madam in English. Everything else stays the same. O senhor fala inglês? O senhor fala inglês? A senhora fala inglês? A senhora fala inglês? Adding com licença, excuse me, the sentence becomes more polite. Com licença, moço, você fala inglês? Com licença, moço, você fala inglês? Or, com licença, o senhor fala inglês? Com licença, o senhor fala inglês? The responses you receive could be one of these three. Sim, yes. Sim. Pouco, a little. Pouco. Não, eu não falo inglês. No, I don't speak English. Não, eu não falo inglês. Since this last one is a negative statement, we need to say não before the verb falar. It is conjugated in the first person, eu falo. So, I don't speak is eu não falo. Now it's time for Paloma's point. For those of you who are not only English speakers, you can obviously use this question with any other language you need. Some people in Brazil study other languages at school, so maybe you get lucky. Just substitute English with Italiano for Italian, Russo for Russian, Espanhol for Spanish, Alemão for German, or any other language. In this lesson, we mentioned the expression com licença. But did you know that this could also be used as an apology? In the next lesson, we will learn this and other ways to apologize in Portuguese. It's never too late to show your good manners with Brazilian people. I'll see you in our next Português em 3 minutos lesson. Até mais! Oi, meu nome é Paloma. Hi everybody, I'm Paloma. Welcome to PortuguesePod101.com's Português em 3 minutos, the fastest, easiest and most fun way to learn Portuguese. In the last lesson, we learned the phrase Com licença, você fala inglês? Excuse me, do you speak English? We mentioned the phrase com licença, which means excuse me in Portuguese. In this lesson, we are going to learn how to use com licença and other words when apologizing in Portuguese. We should use com licença to get someone's attention, such as when you want to pass by them. For example, com licença, eu posso passar? Excuse me, may I pass by you? We can also use it when asking a question. Com licença, você sabe onde fica a praia de Copacabana? Excuse me, do you know where Copacabana Beach is? Another similar phrase is desculpa. This word literally means without guilt, but we use it similarly to the English I'm sorry. Desculpa. Desculpa can be used for either excuse me or I'm sorry. But what if you really want to apologize for something? There is a different phrase you might want to use. Você me desculpa? Would you forgive me? Você me desculpa. First, we have você, that means you, followed by me, which means me, and the verb desculpar referring to você, which is desculpa or forgive. One last way to apologize is using perdão, the same as pardon in English, but this is not used as much as desculpa in Brazil. Perdão. And what to answer when someone says desculpa? There are many ways to answer. You can say tudo bem. Everything's fine. Tudo bem. Or não tem problema. No problem. Não tem problema. Or não se preocupe. Don't worry. Não se preocupe. Following the verb desculpa, you can also answer está desculpado. You're forgiven. Está desculpado. Now it's time for Paloma's point. Brazilians tend to exaggerate. You might hear mil desculpas or I'm sorry 1,000 times, or even bigger numbers as milhão, a million, to express they are really, really sorry. Speaking of numbers, are you able to count in Portuguese? In the next lesson, we will learn the numbers in Portuguese from 1 to 10. I'll be waiting for you in our next Português em 3 minutos lesson. Até a próxima! Oi, meu nome é Paloma. Hi everybody, I'm Paloma. Welcome to PortuguesePod101.com's Português em 3 minutos, the fastest, easiest and most fun way to learn Portuguese. In the last lesson, we learned some words used when apologizing in Portuguese, including com licença and desculpa. In this lesson, we are going to learn numbers in Portuguese. Yes, numbers, os números, from 1 to 10. And you are going to learn them in only 3 minutes. 3 minutos. Are you ready? Let's start! 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10, 10. Okay, now repeat after me. I'll say the numbers and give you time to repeat each one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Great job! What is before Do you know? It's the same as in English, but with a different pronunciation. Zero. Zero. You don't have any more excuses. You can give your friends your cell phone number in Portuguese. Let's try together. We use the phrase o meu número é, which means my number is. O meu número é. O meu número é 97865770. Can you read it by yourself? 97865770. Perfect! Now it's time for Paloma's point. When you say your telephone number in Brazil, we sometimes use the word meia instead of the number 6. It means half and is an abbreviation of half a dozen, meia dúzia. Do you know the Portuguese word for 100? In the next lesson, we are going to learn the numbers from 11 to 100 in Portuguese. Your task now is to practice the numbers we studied in this lesson, from 1 to 10. Até a próxima! Oi, meu nome é Paloma. Hi everybody, I'm Paloma. Welcome to PortuguesePod101.com's Português em 3 minutos, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn Portuguese. In the last lesson, we learned the numbers from 1 to 10. Have you forgotten? Here I'll tell you again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now let's continue from 11. 11, 11, 12, 12, 13, 13, 14, 14, 15, 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, and finally we have 20, 20. Okay, now repeat after me. I'll say the numbers and give you time to repeat each one. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. These numbers may seem harder to remember, but you really just have to memorize 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 and 20. For 16, 17, 18 and 19, the numbers always start with 10 or 10. Let's not stop at 20. Counting from 11 to 100 is super easy. Now I'll give you the tens. 30, 30, 40, 40, 50, 50, 60, 60, 70, 70, 80, 80, 90, 90, 100, 100. While you have to memorize a few of these numbers, there are a couple of tricks that will make memorizing them incredibly easy. From 30 to 90, all the numbers start with the same letters of the simple numbers. For example, 30 is 30, and it comes from the number 3, or 3. Also, 60 means 60, and it comes from the number 6, 6. The last thing to learn today is how to form compound numbers above 20. This is also super easy. Take the tens and simply add e, which means and finally the number you learned in the previous lesson. Let's try it out. How would you say 56 in Portuguese? Let's take it step by step. 50 is 50, and then add and 6. It says 56. It's done. Isn't that easy? Let's make another number. For instance, 98. Take 90, 90, and add e 8, and 8, 98. After only 2 lessons, you are now able to count to 100 in Portuguese. In the next lesson, we are going to put your number knowledge to use. Do you have all the skills you need to go shopping in Brazil? If not, I'll be waiting for you in our next Português em 3 Minutos lesson. Até a próxima! Oi, meu nome é Paloma. Hi everybody, I'm Paloma. Welcome to PortuguesePod101.com's Português em 3 Minutos, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn Portuguese. In the last lesson, we learned how to count in Portuguese. I hope you spent some time practicing the numbers because they will come in handy today. We are going to learn how to go shopping in Brazil. Before we go, you need to know how to say how much is it. Quanto custa? Quanto custa? Are you ready to go shopping in Brazil? Let's go! You see something you like and want to ask the shop clerk how much it costs. The first thing to say to a shop clerk is, com licença. Do you remember what that means? Excuse me. And then, while you point at something you want to buy, you can say, com licença, quanto custa? Com licença, quanto custa? If you want to be more specific when asking how much it is and refer to a certain type of object, we need to know if the object is feminine or masculine. If it's a masculine, add esse or essa for a feminine object, and then say the noun. For example, dress is masculine. Vestido. Com licença, quanto custa esse vestido? Excuse me, how much is this dress? Com licença, quanto custa esse vestido? And t-shirt is a feminine noun, camiseta. Com licença, quanto custa essa camiseta? Excuse me, how much is this t-shirt? Com licença, quanto custa essa camiseta? At this point, the shop clerk can answer by simply saying the number plus reais. For example, 37 reais. What number is 37? I'm not telling you. Okay, it's 37. It costs 37 reals. Now it's time for Paloma's point. In Brazil, it's very common to haggle when you're buying in small businesses. An easy way to ask for discounts is to say, tem desconto? Is there any discount? Tem desconto? At this point, can you count reals in Portuguese? We are going to learn how to do this and much more in the next lesson. I'll be waiting for you in our next Português em 3 Minutos lesson. Até a próxima!
Welcome to Can Do Portuguese by PortuguesePod101.com.
Oi, gente! O meu nome é Jade Furuta. Hi, everyone! My name is Jade Furuta. In this lesson, you learn how to introduce yourself in Portuguese.
This is Mark Lee, and he's on a plane to Brazil. Alex Andrade, A passenger sitting next to him introduces himself by saying, "Hi, I'm Alex. Nice to meet you."
Oi, eu sou Alex. Prazer.
Listen to the conversation and focus on Mark's response. Note, both Alex and Mark use only their first names. Ready?
Oi, eu sou Alex. Prazer.
Eu sou Mark. Prazer.
Once more with the English translation.
Oi, eu sou Alex. Prazer.
Hi, I'm Alex. Nice to meet you.
Eu sou Mark. Prazer.
I'm Mark. Nice to meet you.
Let's take a closer look at the conversation.
Do you remember how Mark Lee introduces himself? I'm Mark. Nice to meet you.
Eu sou Mark. Prazer.
Let's start with the expression,
Prazer.
this literally means a pleasure, but it translates as nice to meet you.
Prazer. Prazer.
Both Mark and Alex use
Prazer.
in their introductions. This expression can be used in many contexts and is appropriate for both formal and informal situations. Do you remember how Mark says, "I'm Mark"?
Eu sou Mark.
First is
Eu.
I.
Eu. Eu.
Next is
Sou.
am, as in I am.
Sou. Sou. Sou.
Is from the verb
Ser.
meaning to be.
Ser.
Next is the name,
Mark.
Mark.
Mark. Mark.
Together it's
Eu sou Mark.
I'm Mark.
Eu sou Mark.
The pattern is
Eu sou name.
I'm name.
Eu sou name.
To use this pattern, simply replace the name placeholder with your given name or your given name and surname. Note, it's more common to use only one's given name with this pattern. Imagine you're Karen. In Portuguese,
Karen. Karen. Karen.
say, I'm Karen. Ready?
Eu sou Karen.
I'm Karen.
Eu sou Karen.
In this conversation, Mark and Alex use the expression.
Prazer.
In both cases,
Prazer.
is actually a shortened version of,
Prazer em conhecê-lo.
meaning, it's a pleasure to meet you, when addressing a male listener.
Prazer em conhecê-lo. Lo.
Indicates a singular masculine form. The gender of the person you are addressing determines the final part of this phrase for the extended version. In the conversation, both listeners were male.
In the case you address a female listener, the extended version is prazer em conhecê-la, where lá indicates the singular feminine form. Remember, you can simply say prazer, the shortened form. It's also polite and can be used with anyone. The extended versions are simply for your general awareness.
Let's look at some examples. Listen and repeat or speak along with the native speakers.
Oi, Eu sou Alex. Prazer. Oi, eu sou Alex. Prazer.
Eu sou Mark. Prazer. Eu sou Mark. Prazer.
Eu sou Karen. Prazer. Eu sou Karen. Prazer.
Eu sou Sasha Lee. Eu sou Sasha Lee.
O meu nome é Lilian. O meu nome é Lilian.
Did you notice how the last speaker uses a different pattern?
O meu nome é Lilian.
My name is Lillian. Let's start with
Nome,
name.
nome, nome.
In Portuguese, all nouns have grammatical gender and are either singular or plural.
Nome,
Is masculine and singular, a fact that determines the form of other words in the sentence. Before this is
o meu,
meaning my,
o meu. Meu
is masculine singular to agree with.
nome,
Before
meu,
is the article.
o,
Think of it like the in English.
o, o, o,
Is also masculine singular to agree with.
nome,
Note, in this sentence, the article
o,
does not have a corresponding English translation. In Portuguese, possessive pronouns like
meu,
my,
seu,
your, and so forth often pair with an article, like the
o,
in.
o meu,
Together it's
o meu,
my.
o meu,
Altogether,
o meu nome,
my name.
o meu nome.
Next is
É,
as in my name is.
é, é, é,
Is from the verb
ser,
meaning to be.
ser.
Together it's
O meu nome é,
my name is.
o meu nome é
Last is the name,
Lilian,
Lillian.
Lilian, Lilian.
Altogether,
O meu nome é Lilian.
my name is Lillian.
O meu nome é Lilian.
This pattern is
O meu nome é name.
my name is name. To use this pattern, simply replace the name placeholder with your given name or given name and surname. Note, this pattern requires a proper noun. Remember this pattern. You will use it later in the lesson. Let's review the new vocabulary.
Oi,
Hi,
oi, oi.
Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember the short way to say, "Nice to meet you"? Prazer. Prazer. And the Portuguese pronunciation of Mark's name? Marky. Marky. Do you remember how to say I? Eu. Eu. Do you remember how Mark says, I'm Mark? Eu sou Mark. Eu sou Mark. And do you remember how Mark says, I'm Mark. Nice to meet you.
Eu sou Mark. Prazer.
Eu sou Mark. Prazer. Do you remember how to say hi? Oi. Oi. And the Portuguese pronunciation of Alex's name, Alex. Alex. Do you remember how Alex says, Hi, I'm Alex. Nice to meet you.
Oi, eu sou Alex. Prazer.
Oi, eu sou Alex. Prazer. Do you remember the Portuguese pronunciation of Lilian's name? Lilian. Lilian. And how to say name? Nome. Nome. Do you remember how to say my name? Don't forget the article. O meu nome. O meu nome. Do you remember how to say my name is Lilian? O meu nome é Lilian. O meu nome é Lilian.
Let's practice. Imagine you're Karen.
Karen.
Respond to Alex's self-introduction. Ready?
Oi, eu sou Alex. Prazer.
Eu sou Karen. Prazer.
Listen again and repeat.
Eu sou Karen. Prazer. Eu sou Karen. Prazer.
Let's try another. Imagine you're Lillian.
Lilian.
Include nice to meet you. Ready?
Oi, eu sou Alex. Prazer.
Eu sou Lilian. Prazer.
Listen again and repeat.
Eu sou Lilian. Prazer. Eu sou Lilian. Prazer.
Let's try one more. Imagine you're Jaji.
Jade.
Respond by saying, My name is Jaji. Nice to meet you. Ready?
O meu nome é Alex. Prazer.
O meu nome é Jade. Prazer.
Listen again and repeat.
O meu nome é Jade. Prazer. O meu nome é Jade. Prazer. In general, Brazilians use only their first names when introducing themselves. However, in a formal situation, such as a business meeting, it may be better to use your full name. For example,
Eu sou Karen Lee.
I'm Karen Lee. This is the end of this lesson.
Remember, these can-do lessons are about learning practical language skills. What's next? Show us what you can do. When you're ready, take your assessment. You can take it again and again, so try any time you like. Our teachers will assess it and give you your results.
Now you know how to introduce yourself in Portuguese. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson. This is the end of this lesson.
Now, here's what you can do to cement this conversation in your head. Review the conversation with our dialogue tool and lesson transcripts. Study the key words and phrases with our spaced repetition flashcards. Review the key grammar and cultural tips inside the lesson notes. And test yourself with our assessment tests. So click the link in the description right now and sign up for your free lifetime account to access our Can-Do course.
Now you know how to introduce yourself in Portuguese. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson.
Welcome to Can-Do Portuguese by PortuguesePod101.com.
Oi, gente! O meu nome é Jade Furuta. Hi, everyone! My name is Jade Furuta. In this lesson, you learn how to tell someone where you're from in Portuguese.
This is Mark Lee, and he's on a plane to Brazil. Alex Andrade, a passenger sitting next to him, asks, "Where are you from?"
De onde você é?
Listen to the conversation and focus on Mark's response. Note, the speakers in this conversation use informal Portuguese. Ready?
De onde você é?
Eu sou de Nova York.
Once more with the English translation.
De onde você é?
Where are you from?
Eu sou de Nova York.
I'm from New York.
Let's take a closer look at the conversation.
Do you remember how Alex Andrade asks, "Where are you from?"
De onde você é?
Let's start with
Onde?
meaning where.
Onde? Onde?
Before this is
De,
meaning from in this context.
de,
Together,
de onde?
literally, from where. Last is
Você é?
you are.
Você é?
First is
Você,
meaning you in this context.
você, você,
Note, in Brazilian Portuguese,
você,
is used when addressing someone in a casual conversation. After this is
é,
literally is, but translates as are in this context.
é, é,
Is from the verb
ser,
meaning to be.
ser, ser.
Together,
Você é,
literally means you is, but translates as you are.
você é,
Note,
Você,
You is always followed by a verb in the third person singular, as in,
você é,
literally, you is, but translates as, you are. This is because
você,
derives from
vossa mercê,
a form of address meaning your mercy, similar to other honorifics like your excellency or your honor. Thus,
você,
began its life as a third-person singular pronoun, and therefore requires a verb in the third-person singular to agree with it. Altogether,
de onde você é?
literally, from where you is, but translates as, where are you from?
De onde você é?
Remember this question. You'll hear it again later in this lesson.
Let's take a closer look at the response.
Do you remember how Mark Lee says, I'm from New York?
Eu sou de Nova York.
Let's start with
Nova York,
New York.
Nova York, Nova York.
In Portuguese, all nouns have grammatical gender, and, therefore, often appear with an article. However, city names like
Nova York,
are almost always used without articles, a fact which will determine the forms of other words in the sentence. Before
Nova York,
is
de,
from in this context.
de, de,
Together,
de Nova York,
from New York. Moving to the front of the sentence, first is
eu,
I.
eu, eu,
Next is
sou,
am.
sou, sou, sou,
Is from the verb
ser,
meaning to be.
ser.
Altogether,
Eu sou de Nova York.
I'm from New York.
Eu sou de Nova York.
The pattern is
Eu sou de city name.
I am from city name.
Eu sou de city name.
To use this pattern, simply replace the city name placeholder with the name of your hometown. Note, this sentence pattern works with most city names, as most city names don't appear with an article. Imagine you're from Sydney. In Portuguese,
Sydney. Sydney. Sydney.
say, I'm from Sydney. Ready?
Eu sou de Sydney.
I'm from Sydney.
Eu sou de Sydney.
The key pattern works with cities, as most cities don't appear with an article. However, this is not the case with cities named after common nouns. For cities named after common nouns, the corresponding article will change depending on the gender of the common noun. For example,
Rio de Janeiro.
is named after the masculine noun,
Rio.
meaning river. In Portuguese, all nouns have grammatical gender and are either singular or plural.
Rio.
Is masculine and singular, a fact which will determine the form of other words in the sentence. The corresponding definite article for masculine singular nouns is
O.
as in
O Rio.
the river. When
De.
precedes
O. De.
plus
O.
becomes
Do.
Therefore, I'm from Rio de Janeiro is
Eu sou do Rio de Janeiro. Eu sou do Rio de Janeiro. Guarda,
a city in Portugal is named after the feminine noun,
guarda.
meaning guard. For feminine singular nouns, the corresponding definite article is
A,
as in
a guarda.
the guard. When
De,
precedes
a, de,
plus
a,
becomes
da.
therefore, I am from Guarda is
Eu sou da guarda. Eu sou da guarda.
You should be aware of this, but you won't need it for this lesson. For this lesson, recall city names, like
Nova York.
are almost always used without articles, and therefore the pattern is
Eu sou de city name.
Let's look at some examples. Listen and repeat or speak along with the native speakers.
Eu sou de Nova York. Eu sou de Nova York.
Eu sou de Porto Alegre. Eu sou de Porto Alegre.
Eu sou de Seattle. E você? Eu sou de Seattle. E você?
Eu sou de Londres. Eu sou de Londres.
Eu sou de São Paulo. Eu sou de São Paulo.
Eu sou australiana. Eu sou australiana.
Did you notice how the last speaker uses a different pattern?
Eu sou australiana.
I'm Australian.
Eu sou australiana.
First is
Eu,
I. Next is
sou,
am.
sou,
Together,
eu sou,
I'm.
eu sou
Next is
australiana.
an Australian woman.
Australiana.
Here, Mia Martin uses a feminine adjective
Australiana.
to describe herself. Altogether,
Eu sou australiana.
I'm Australian.
Eu sou australiana.
This pattern is
Eu sou nationality.
I'm nationality. To use this pattern, simply replace the nationality placeholder with your nationality. Note, this pattern requires an adjective, and its gender will depend on the gender of the speaker. Mia Martin uses a feminine adjective.
Australiana.
A male speaker from Australia would use a masculine adjective.
Australiano. Eu sou australiano.
I'm Australian.
Eu sou australiano.
You can use this response to answer the question.
De onde você é?
You should be aware of this pattern, but you won't need it for this lesson. Let's review the new vocabulary.
Nova York.
New York,
Nova York. Nova York. Porto Alegre.
Porto Alegre,
Porto Alegre. Porto Alegre. Seattle.
Seattle.
Seattle. Seattle. Londres.
London.
Londres. Londres. São Paulo.
Sao Paulo.
São Paulo. São Paulo.
Australian.
Australiano. Australiano. Australiana. Australiana. E você?
And you?
E você? E você?
Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say New York? Nova York. Nova York. And how to say from New York? De Nova York. De Nova York. Do you remember how Mark says, I'm from New York?
Eu sou de Nova York.
Eu sou de Nova York. Do you remember how to say where? Onde? Onde? And how to say from where? De onde? De onde? And do you remember how Alex Andrade asks, where are you from?
De onde você é?
De onde você é? Do you remember how to say London? Londres. Londres. And how to say Sydney? Sydney. Sydney. Do you remember how to say São Paulo? São Paulo. São Paulo. And how to say and you? E você? E você?
Let's practice. Imagine you're Jack Jones from London. Respond to Alex Andrade's question. Ready?
De onde você é?
Eu sou de Londres.
Listen again and repeat.
Eu sou de Londres. Eu sou de Londres.
Let's try another. Imagine you're Mia Martin from Sydney. Ready?
De onde você é?
Eu sou de Sydney.
Listen again and repeat.
Eu sou de Sydney. Eu sou de Sydney.
Let's try one more. Imagine you're Jaji Furuta from Sao Paulo. Respond and then add, and you? Ready?
De onde você é?
Eu sou de São Paulo. E você?
Listen again and repeat.
Eu sou de São Paulo. E você? Eu sou de São Paulo. E você? This is the end of this lesson.
Remember, these can-do lessons are about learning practical language skills. What's next? Show us what you can do. When you're ready, take your assessment. You can take it again and again, so try any time you like. Our teachers will assess it and give you your results.
Now you know how to say where you are from in Portuguese. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson. This is the end of this lesson.
Now, here's what you can do to cement this conversation in your head. Review the conversation with our dialogue tool and lesson transcripts. Study the key words and phrases with our spaced repetition flashcards. Review the key grammar and cultural tips inside the lesson notes. And test yourself with our assessment tests. So click the link in the description right now and sign up for your free lifetime account to access our Can-Do course.
Now you know how to say where you are from in Portuguese. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson.
Welcome to Can-Do Portuguese by PortuguesePod101.com.
Oi, gente! O meu nome é Jade Furuta. Hi, everyone! My name is Jade Furuta. In this lesson, you learn how to talk about your occupation in Portuguese.
This is Mark Lee, and he's on a plane to Brazil. He asks the passenger sitting next to him, Alex Andrade, "Are you a student?"
Você é estudante?
Listen to the conversation and focus on Alex's response. Note, the speakers in this conversation use informal Portuguese. Ready?
Você é estudante?
Não, eu não sou estudante. Eu sou investidor.
Once more with the English translation.
Você é estudante?
Are you a student?
Não, eu não sou estudante. Eu sou investidor.
No, I'm not a student. I'm an investor.
Let's take a closer look at the conversation.
Do you remember how Mark asks, "Are you a student?"
Você é estudante?
Let's start with the word
Estudante.
student.
Estudante. Estudante.
In Portuguese, nouns have grammatical gender and are either singular or plural. However, the noun
Estudante.
student is a special case, as it has just one form for both masculine and feminine genders. In this case,
Estudante.
is masculine singular, as Mark is addressing Alex. Next is
Você é
you are.
Você é.
First is
Você.
meaning you informal.
Você. Você.
Note, in Brazilian Portuguese,
Você.
is used when addressing someone in a casual conversation. After this is
É.
literally is, but translates as are in this context.
É. É. É.
Is from the verb,
Ser.
meaning to be.
Ser. Ser.
Together,
Você é.
literally means you is, but translates as you are.
Você é.
Note,
Você.
you is always followed by the verb in the third person singular, as in
Você é.
literally you is, but translates as you are. Altogether,
Você é estudante?
literally you is student, but translates as are you a student?
Você é estudante?
Let's take a closer look at the response.
Do you remember how Alex says, "No, I'm not a student. I'm an investor"?
Não, eu não sou estudante. Eu sou investidor.
First is
Não.
meaning no.
Não. Não.
It answers Mark's yes or no question. Are you a student?
Você é estudante?
After this, Alex Andrade specifies that he's not a student.
Eu não sou estudante.
I'm not a student.
Eu não sou estudante.
First is
Eu.
I.
Eu.
After this is
Não.
meaning not.
Não. Não.
Next is
Sou.
am.
Sou. Sou.
Is from the verb
Ser.
meaning to be.
Ser.
Together, it's
Eu não sou.
literally I not am, but translates as I am not.
Eu não sou.
After this is
Estudante.
student.
Estudante.
Again, masculine singular in this case, as Alex is responding. Altogether,
Eu não sou estudante.
literally, I not am student, but translates as I'm not a student.
Eu não sou estudante.
Alex then tells Mark his actual occupation.
Eu sou investidor.
I'm an investor.
Eu sou investidor.
First is
Eu.
I.
Eu.
Next is
Sou.
am.
Sou.
Next is
Investidor.
investor.
Investidor. Investidor. Investidor.
Is a masculine singular noun. Together,
Eu sou investidor.
I'm an investor.
Eu sou investidor.
Altogether,
Não, eu não sou estudante. Eu sou investidor.
no, I'm not a student. I'm an investor.
Não, eu não sou estudante. Eu sou investidor.
The pattern is
Não, eu não sou occupation. Eu sou actual occupation.
No, I'm not occupation. I'm actual occupation. To use this pattern, simply replace the occupation and actual occupation placeholders with the occupations that are appropriate to the conversation. Note, this pattern requires nouns. Their gender will depend on the gender of the speaker. Imagine you're Emma Espinosa, a student. Recall, the word for a female student is also
Estudante. Estudante.
Alex Andrade asks you if you're a teacher,
Professora.
a female teacher.
Professora. Professora.
Say, no, I'm not a teacher. I'm a student. Ready?
Não, eu não sou professora. Eu sou estudante.
No, I'm not a teacher. I'm a student.
Não, eu não sou professora. Eu sou estudante.
In Portuguese, many of the occupation nouns differ depending on gender. For example, architect, arquiteto, arquiteto, arquiteta, arquiteta.
In Portuguese, there are some rules of thumb for the gender of nouns. Nouns that end in O tend to be masculine. For example,
Arquiteto.
architect, masculine singular form.
Médico.
Doctor, masculine singular form. While nouns that end in A tend to be feminine. For example,
Arquiteta.
architect, feminine singular form.
Médica.
Doctor, feminine singular form.
In Portuguese, some occupations share the same word for both genders, such as estudante, student, estudante, dentista, dentist, dentista.
Let's look at some more examples. Listen and repeat or speak along with the native speakers.
Não, eu não sou estudante. Eu sou investidor. Não, eu não sou estudante. Eu sou investidor.
Não, eu não sou professora. Eu sou estudante. Não, eu não sou professora. Eu sou estudante.
Não, eu não sou professor. Eu sou engenheiro. Não, eu não sou professor. Eu sou engenheiro.
Não, eu não sou enfermeira. Eu sou médica. Não, eu não sou enfermeira. Eu sou médica.
Não, eu não sou estudante. Eu sou professora. Não, eu não sou estudante. Eu sou professora.
Não, eu sou barista. Não, eu sou barista.
Did you notice how the last speaker omits part of the response?
Não, eu sou barista.
No, I'm a barista.
Não, eu sou barista.
When directly responding to someone's question, it's often possible to omit part of the response. Here, by simply answering
Não,
No. There's no need to say,
Eu não sou estudante.
I'm not a student. The pattern is,
Não, eu sou actual occupation.
no, I'm actual occupation. Remember this pattern. You'll need it for the practice section. Let's review the new vocabulary.
Estudante,
Student,
estudante, estudante.
teacher,
Professor, professor, professora, professora.
engineer,
Engenheiro, engenheiro, engenheira, engenheira.
nurse,
Enfermeiro, enfermeiro, enfermeira, enfermeira.
doctor,
Médico, médico, médica, médica.
barista,
Barista, barista, barista.
Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember the word for a male investor? Investidor. Investidor. And how Alex says, I'm an investor. Eu sou investidor. Eu sou investidor. Do you remember the word for student? Estudante. Estudante. Do you remember how Alex says, I'm not a student? Eu não sou estudante. Eu não sou estudante. And how Alex says, no. Não. Não. Do you remember how Alex Andrade says, no, I'm not a student, I'm an investor?
Não, eu não sou estudante. Eu sou investidor.
Não, eu não sou estudante. Eu sou investidor. Do you remember how Mark Lee asks, are you a student?
Você é estudante?
Você é estudante? Do you remember the word for a female teacher? Professora. Professora. Do you remember the word for a male engineer? Engenheiro. Engenheiro.
Let's practice. Imagine you're Mark Lee, and you're an engineer. Respond to Alex's question. Ready?
Você é professor?
Não, eu não sou professor. Eu sou engenheiro.
Listen again and repeat.
Não, eu não sou professor. Eu sou engenheiro. Não, eu não sou professor. Eu sou engenheiro.
Let's try another. Imagine you're Jade Furuta, and you're a teacher. Ready?
Você é estudante?
Não, eu não sou estudante. Eu sou professora.
Listen again and repeat.
Não, eu não sou estudante. Eu sou professora. Não, eu não sou estudante. Eu sou professora.
Let's try one more. Imagine you're Emma Espinosa, and you're a student. Use the shortened variation pattern. Ready?
Você é professora?
Não, eu sou estudante.
Listen again and repeat.
Não, eu sou estudante. Não, eu sou estudante.
This is the end of this lesson.
Remember, these can-do lessons are about learning practical language skills. What's next? Show us what you can do. When you're ready, take your assessment. You can take it again and again, so try any time you like. Our teachers will assess it and give you your results.
Now you know how to talk about your occupation in Portuguese. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson. This is the end of this lesson.
Now, here's what you can do to cement this conversation in your head. Review the conversation with our dialogue tool and lesson transcripts. Study the key words and phrases with our spaced repetition flashcards. Review the key grammar and cultural tips inside the lesson notes. And test yourself with our assessment tests. So click the link in the description right now and sign up for your free lifetime account to access our Can-Do course.
Now you know how to talk about your occupation in Portuguese. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson.
Hi, welcome to Introduction to Portuguese. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Anna. In this series, you'll learn everything you need to know to get started learning Portuguese.
That's right, and we're here to help guide you on your journey. In this lesson, you'll learn the reasons why you should start learning a new language, why you should learn Portuguese in particular, and how to get started. There are countless reasons, but perhaps the biggest one of all is that it could actually change your life. Learning a new language unlocks new pathways that are off limits to you now. There are certain things that you simply cannot do without having the technical or cultural skills that come from learning a new language.
Like working or living in another country.
Knowing another language provides you with greater job opportunities. You have the freedom to move to another country halfway around the world and be able to earn a living, or even better yet, build a career from it, instead of just being stuck in one place. Language allows you to visit or live in places that you may never even have considered going simply because that wasn't a possibility for you. Knowing another language simply gives you more options to choose from.
And learning a new language also helps you to be more open-minded and see the world from a new perspective.
Language and culture go hand in hand. The world is a big place, and by broadening your understanding of other cultures, it allows you to be more empathetic and understanding of the many different ways that people live their lives. With language, you're able to see and experience more, which helps you to grow as a person.
Learning a new language also improves your memory.
Several studies have consistently shown that those who study another language have improved memory, as opposed to those who didn't learn another language. Learning another language also keeps your brain healthy by significantly delaying the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia. This difference can be as much as 4 to 5 more years of quality life.
And those are just some of the reasons you should learn another language. The list just goes on and on.
Now you know the benefits of studying another language, but why should you learn Portuguese in particular?
Have you ever heard of capoeira, Havaiana flip-flops, musicians Tom Jobim and Caetano Veloso, or the movie City of God? They're all part of Brazilian culture.
Brazilian popular culture is widely known for its richness and diversity. The country's mixed background resulted in a unique culture, famous for its music, such as samba and bossa nova, and telenovelas, a type of soap opera watched in more than 100 countries worldwide.
Not to mention the Brazilian football team and players, cheered and followed by the whole world, and the famous top models that are from Brazil. Learning Portuguese will allow you to take in all that Brazilian culture has to offer.
Also, did you know Portuguese is the 6th most spoken language in the world? Over 260 million people speak Portuguese today, making it the fastest growing Western language after English. Portuguese is spoken in 10 other countries besides Brazil.
Brazil is huge. Not only is it the largest country, it's also the largest economy in Latin America. Brazil has been the world's largest producer of coffee for the last 150 years. And it's big in other industries too, being the South America #1 in automotive, oil, iron, and steel industries.
Knowing Portuguese opens up many business opportunities, and knowledge of the language, of Brazilian culture, their work ethic, and business etiquette can go a very long way in the world of business. Oftentimes, it could even make or break an important business deal. Knowing Portuguese then will put you ahead of the pack.
For instance, Brazilians' more relaxed attitude and pace often lead to more lengthy business interactions. Rushing these interactions, pressing for final decisions, and avoiding small talk and socializing may be perceived as rude and even untrustworthy. This could definitely influence the making or breaking of a deal.
We should add that only 5% of the Brazilian population speaks English. So either for business or leisure purposes, speaking at least some Portuguese will really make a difference.
And who hasn't heard of Brazilian beaches, Rio de Janeiro, or Carnival?
The many traditional festivities, the tropical climate, and the people's hospitality make Brazil a fascinating tourist destination. The country's coastline measures 7,491 kilometers and is comprised of more than 2,000 beaches.
Brazil is also ranked as the country with the greatest biodiversity in the planet, being home to 60% of the Amazon rainforest and the Pantanal, among other UNESCO World Heritage Sites.
Okay then, we've talked about why you should start learning a language and why you should start learning Portuguese, but how should they get started, Anna?
Why learn Portuguese? Well, it's simple as learning your first word in Portuguese and building up from there.
The good news, though, is that you already know some Portuguese.
Shopping center, notebook, feedback.
There are many English loanwords that are used in Portuguese today, but the reverse is also true. Many Portuguese words have found their way into English.
Banana, guaraná, cobra.
Even without teaching you any Portuguese, there's a good chance that you'll recognize some Portuguese words.
Let's teach you something that you might not know, but which is very useful. Obrigada. It means thank you in Portuguese. But note that I said obrigada because I'm a female.
That's useful. Let's not worry about Portuguese gender rules for now. We'll explain more in future episodes. Let's just practice this word a little. Listen and repeat after Ana.
Obrigado. Obrigada.
Now you try.
Obrigado. Obrigada.
Your turn again.
Obrigado. Obrigada.
Well done. Now you know how to say thank you in Portuguese. We've covered a lot of things already, so why don't we wrap up the first lesson and recap on what we've learned. In this lesson, you learned that studying another language has many benefits, such as providing new job and business opportunities. Learning Portuguese will help you experience more of Brazilian culture and the country, where there's plenty to do and see. And to say thank you in Portuguese, it's
Obrigado. Obrigada.
In the next lesson, we're going to demystify Portuguese pronunciation by taking a look at the sounds of Portuguese, so be sure to watch the next video. See you in the next lesson. Bye!
Bye!
Hi! Welcome to Introduction to Portuguese. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Ana.
In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of Brazilian Portuguese pronunciation. Pronunciation refers to the manner in which a word is spoken, so don't focus on reading what's on screen. Instead, focus on listening and repeating.
In Brazilian Portuguese, vowel sounds are represented by 5 characters.
There are 13 basic vowel sounds that create several diphthongs and triphthongs, which are vowel sound combinations. Let's take a look at how some of the basic vowels are pronounced.
A, E, I, O, U.
The more closed vowels are
E, O.
And there are the nasal vowels
I, O, U.
Diphthongs are 2 vowel sounds pronounced closely together to form a gliding sound. Here are some examples.
Oi, El.
Finally, triphthongs are gliding sounds made by 3 vowel sounds.
Y, Way, Wão.
Diacritics are in some cases used in vowels to signify certain ways of pronunciation, but don't worry about them for now. We'll eventually get there.
Nasal vowels are very common in Portuguese, and they may seem a little tricky.
To correctly produce nasal vowels, you should relax your soft palate and the back of your tongue so the nasal passage is not blocked. It's like humming with your mouth open and adding the vowel sound to it. Let the air pass through both your oral and nasal passages. Listen and repeat after Ana.
Banco, banco, banco.
There are 21 basic consonant sounds in Portuguese, represented by 20 characters. The consonant sounds in Portuguese can be very similar to English, as well as some vowels. Let's take a look at the consonants combined with a vowel.
Pa, ba, ta, da, ca, ga, ma, na, nha, fa, va, sa, za, ja, sha, ha, la, lha, ra, chi, ji.
As you can see, most sounds are the same in English. Let's see in this case.
Ciao.
The first sound is the same as the ch in change. The second one is the same as the ow in out. Listen again.
Ciao.
See how they sound the same? That means you only have to learn a few new sounds to speak Brazilian Portuguese. As you just learned, there are a lot of identical sounds between English and Portuguese. So let's take a look at the unique sounds of Brazilian Portuguese.
There are 3 Portuguese consonants not shared with English, as well as the nasal vowels already seen in this lesson.
Let's take a closer look at one of these consonants.
Fruta.
Focus on the second letter.
Ru.
This trill sound is done by lightly tapping the gum ridge behind your upper teeth with the tip of your tongue. It should be a quick, striking motion, similar to the sensation you get when pronouncing the T in words like butter, cutter, and so on. Don't roll your tongue like an English R. Most of the air should go around the sides of your tongue. Listen and repeat after Ana.
Fruta. Fruta. Fruta.
Well done! Note that this trill is present in the first word we learned in the previous lesson. Do you remember it?
Obrigado. Obrigada.
Okay, so let's wrap up this lesson by recapping what we've learned. In this lesson, you learned the characters that represent vowel sounds in Portuguese and that the language uses diacritics. Most consonant sounds in Portuguese are the same as in English, and there are some unique sounds in Portuguese, nasal vowels and 3 consonants. We've covered only the basics of Portuguese pronunciation. If you're interested in learning more, check out the entire course we created named The Ultimate Guide to Portuguese Pronunciation. In that course, we cover and break down every single sound in the Portuguese language, showing you mouth and tongue positioning and giving you tips to help you perfect your Portuguese pronunciation. In the next lesson, we'll introduce you to the basics of Portuguese grammar, where you'll learn about Brazilian Portuguese order and how to build basic phrases in Brazilian Portuguese. See you in the next lesson. Bye!
Bye!
Hi! Welcome to Introduction to Portuguese. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Ana.
In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of Portuguese grammar. Word order refers to the order in which words are structured to form a sentence in a given language. Consider the English sentence, I ate an apple. But first, let's remove the article an here for simplicity. So we're just left with I ate apple. The basic word order for English is subject, verb, object, or SVO for short.
The good thing is Portuguese uses the same SVO word order. Let's take a closer look.
If we break down the English sentence, I ate apple, we can see that the subject I is presented first, followed by the verb ate, and then finally the object apple is positioned last.
Let's compare that same sentence, I ate an apple, in Portuguese. Eu comi uma maçã. Like before, let's remove the particles to keep it simple. So we're just left with the words Eu comi maçã. I ate apple. Subject, verb, object. Breaking down the Portuguese sentence, we can see the word order is subject, verb, and object.
Which means that you don't have to change this basic structure when speaking Portuguese. In some cases, the order can be changed and the subject, in Brazilian Portuguese, is likely to be repeated forward in the sentence. But don't worry about it for now. Let's keep going. One of the great things about Portuguese is that once you learn how to form statement sentences, it's really easy to form other types of sentences. Let's see this one.
Você pegou o ônibus. Subject, verb, object.
As you see, the order of this statement is SVO. Now, what if you want to say this as a negative sentence, Ana?
You just have to place the negative word não, which means no or don't, before the verb. So we have the negative sentence. Você não pegou o ônibus. Basically, there are no different rules for these negative sentences. Just place the negative word não before the verb and keep the word order.
There are also other negative words in Portuguese, such as these.
Nunca, nem, nada, sem, nenhum, nenhuma.
Negative words in Portuguese may follow different rules and be placed differently.
For now, just stick with não before verbs, and you'll do just fine. Let's see another example. With the statement, how can we make it a negative sentence with the word não? You try. Eu não tenho tempo.
Well done. Notice that this negative word is not a verb, so it won't change according to verb tense. The verb changes, but the negative word doesn't, which is quite different from English.
Eu não tenho tempo. Eu não tive tempo. Eu não terei tempo.
As we mentioned before, building sentences in Portuguese is relatively simple. Let's see how we can form a question from a sentence.
If you want to make an indirect question, you can think of it like it's basically a statement, like the previous phrase. Você pegou o ônibus. With a question mark at the end and a raised intonation. Você pegou o ônibus? And that's it.
How simple! Unlike English, in Portuguese you don't need to use a verb at the beginning of a question. And what about direct questions?
For some cases, you only need to use a question word, like o que, onde, quando at the beginning of the sentence. The rest is like the other examples we've seen in this lesson.
So, using one of these question words, we could make the following direct question by simply placing it at the beginning.
Onde você pegou o ônibus? Let's place it at the beginning. Quando você pegou o ônibus?
This is not an absolute rule, but it's enough to give you a better idea about question words and direct questions in Portuguese.
Okay then, let's move on to the next section.
As we learned in this lesson, Portuguese uses the same SVO order as English, and there are no great changes in negatives and questions. So we're going to talk about some Portuguese grammar aspects that differ from those of English. That means Portuguese grammar may permit or even mandate the omission of an explicit subject. Let's see two examples.
Não choveu. Negative, verb, word.
There is no subject in this phrase, as it's the rule in Portuguese in such cases. Here's another example.
Eu estou feliz. Subject, verb, adjective.
In this case, the subject is implicit. This is extremely common in Brazilian Portuguese and wouldn't be wrong to make explicit.
Eu estou feliz.
We'll elaborate later, but in Portuguese, the subject is encoded in the verb conjugation. That's why in this case, we know the subject is the first person singular, even though it's hidden.
There is one more aspect about Portuguese grammar that may be tricky.
In Brazilian Portuguese, adjectives are almost always placed after their nouns, while in English, it's the other way around.
Você pegou o ônibus amarelo. Noun, adjective. You took the yellow bus. Adjective, noun. Adjectives before nouns are not wrong though. They're just used more commonly in writing and for poetic effect. It would be unusual, however, when used in daily conversation.
Okay, let's wrap up this lesson by recapping what we've learned. In this lesson, you learned that Portuguese sentences are formed using a subject, verb, object, or SVO word order. At the same time, this is not rigid, as Portuguese also uses other orders. Basic sentences, like statements and negatives, are very similar in their structure. To make indirect questions, you should just add a question mark at the end of a statement sentence and raise your intonation. Portuguese is a null subject language, so a lot of sentences may have the subject in a hidden condition or not present at all. Adjectives are placed after the noun and not before, like in English. We've covered only the very basics of Portuguese grammar. If you're interested in learning more, check out our Portuguese in 3 Minutes video series. In that course, we teach you useful phrases while covering the fundamentals of Portuguese grammar, and each lesson is only 3 minutes long. In the next lesson, we'll introduce you to the basics of Portuguese writing. See you in the next lesson. Bye!
Bye!
Welcome to Introduction to Portuguese. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Anna.
In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of Portuguese writing. Portuguese uses the exact same alphabet as English, comprised of 26 letters.
A, B, K.
Let's listen to the names of the letters in Portuguese.
A, B, C.
The letters K, W, and Y were recently recognized as part of the official Portuguese alphabet. They are only used in personal names, foreign loanwords, and derivatives, including words from indigenous Brazilian languages.
The letter Y is read like the vowel I. Yakisoba, shoyu, Yanomami. The letter W may vary. It may be read like the vowel U or like the consonant V. It usually follows the pronunciation of the language of origin. Washington, Wagner, Volkswagen. And the letter K is read just like in English. Kart, yakisoba, kung fu, kantiano.
The Portuguese alphabet is phonetic, which means letters represent certain sounds alone and certain sounds when combined, just like most Western languages.
Portuguese, like English, uses digraphs, which are pairs of letters representing a single sound, different from their components alone, but they're not included in the alphabet. For instance, the letter C sounds like this, casa, or like this, cinto. When paired with H, forming the digraph CH, we have the sound chocolate.
So, as you can see, while Portuguese is largely pronounced as it's written, some letter combinations will produce digraphs that you will need to look out for.
Diacritics are little marks that are added to the letters to indicate some alteration on the quality of the original letter. It usually indicates a pronunciation aspect. While in English they appear more in names and loanwords, such as fiancé, in Portuguese they are very common.
There are 5 diacritics with different uses in Portuguese. They can indicate stressed vowels and pronunciation aspects in consonants and vowels. They can also be used to differentiate some homographs or to mark grammar phenomena. Let's see what they are.
In Portuguese, the acute accent is used to indicate a stressed vowel in a word. Fácil, árvore, alguém. As you see, all the stressed vowels in these words are marked with the acute accent.
Vowels with the acute accent will be stressed and pronounced with open pronunciation.
Avó. This word means grandmother. If said with a closed vowel, it would mean grandfather, and with no accent at all, avo. The stressed vowel now is the first one. This word is used to express fractions. So, if this word is not correctly marked, you don't know how to pronounce the last vowel properly. Specifically in this case, with an incorrect pronunciation, it would have a different meaning.
As we saw in the last example, circumflexes mark when vowels are pronounced with closed pronunciation.
Português.
Circumflexes are also used to differentiate homographs. Homographs are words that are written in the same way, but with different meanings.
Vem, vem. Pode, pôde. As you see, this mark may or may not refer to the vowel sound in such cases.
The grave accent is related to a grammar phenomenon, the crassus. The crassus is a contraction of a feminine article with a preposition.
Fui a plus a cidade. Verb, preposition, article, object. Fui a cidade.
The grave accent in Portuguese is never a pronunciation mark, so it would never alter how a vowel, syllable, or word sounds.
To indicate nasal vowels, the tilde is used. Pão. Note that although the nasal vowel marked with tilde is commonly stressed, the stressed quality is not part of what the tilde means, like in this case, sótão. The stressed vowel is marked by an acute accent, indicating also the open vowel pronunciation even though the tilde is present.
The cedilla is the only diacritic used on consonants in Portuguese. More specifically, it is only used on the letter C, hence the Portuguese name.
C cedilha. C, when paired with vowels A, O, and U, sounds like the English K. Casa, acordo, óculos. Whenever the cedilha is put before these vowels, it will sound like the English S. Calçada, açougue, açúcar. Incerto, cinto. So the cedilha will never be there in these cases with I and E. Also, the cedilha is never the first letter in a word. The cedilha has been historically replaced by the letter S in those cases, so there is no capital. C cedilha. Saúde, suco.
Great! Let's move on to the next section. Capitalization rules in English and in Portuguese are mostly the same. For instance, the first letter in a sentence is always capitalized, just like people's names and nations. Still, there are some significant differences between capitalization in English and in Portuguese. Let's focus on some of these.
Portuguese doesn't capitalize the pronoun eu. That is the equivalent to the pronoun I in English, which is always capitalized. Claro, eu concordo.
Nationalities and regional adjectives aren't capitalized in Portuguese. The same goes for a language name.
Ela é brasileira e fala português.
Days of the week and months are also never capitalized.
A reunião será nesta quarta-feira. Normalmente, saio de férias em julho.
In titles of works such as books and movies, only the first letter is capitalized, unless there's a personal name in it.
Capitães de Areia. Memórias póstumas de Brás Cubas.
These are some of the capitalization rules in Portuguese that differ from those in English. Most of the other rules are the same.
Okay, let's wrap up this lesson by recapping what we've learned.
In this lesson, you learned that the Portuguese alphabet is identical to the one used in English and also has digraphs. You learned that acute accents indicate both stressed and opened vowels, circumflexes indicate closed vowels, the grave accent always indicates crassus and is not a phonetical mark, the tilde is used to mark nasal vowels, and the cedilla gives an S sound to the letter C. Also, you learned the main differences in capitalization Portuguese has when compared to English. In the next lesson, you'll be entering Portuguese Boot Camp, where you'll learn useful beginner phrases to get you speaking Portuguese right away. See you in the next lesson. Bye!
Bye!
Hi! Welcome to Introduction to Portuguese. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Anna.
In this lesson, we'll focus on teaching you the most useful Portuguese words and phrases for absolute beginners.
Make sure you are repeating the words out loud after I say the examples.
Are you ready? Let's get started. The best phrase to learn when studying a new language is one that expresses gratitude and appreciation. If you had to learn only a single phrase, this would be it.
We taught you this word in the first lesson of the series. Do you remember what it was? Obrigado. Obrigada. It means thank you. Say obrigado if you're a male or obrigada if you're a female. Obrigado. Obrigada.
Keep repeating after Anna until you get it.
Obrigado. Obrigada.
Your turn.
Obrigado. Obrigada. Obrigado. Obrigada.
Do you remember how we talked about pronunciation of the letter R here in Lesson 2? Don't pronounce it like an English R. Don't roll your tongue. Listen to how Anna is pronouncing this sound.
Ri.
Think of the quick tapping motion your tongue makes as it strikes the top gum ridge in words like ladder or butter.
ri, ri.
Altogether, it's
Obrigado, obrigada.
okay. One last time.
Obrigado, obrigada.
Okay. The next phrase we'll teach you is perhaps the second most useful phrase of all. It's to excuse yourself.
Com licença. It means excuse me. Com licença.
Use this phrase when you want to grab someone's attention or when you brush by someone in the streets.
Com licença.
If you recall, we talked about nasal vowels in Lesson 2 too, like this one.
N.
To pronounce it, you need to lower your soft palate and the back of your tongue, unblocking the nasal passage and allowing air to pass through the nasal cavity and out through the nose. Imagine you're humming with your mouth open and add the E vowel sound to it.
N.
Now you try.
N.
Again.
N.
Altogether, it's
Com licença.
On a daily basis, Brazilians tend to drop the first word, saying simply,
Licença.
And what about showing forgiveness? This is very important in any country. In Brazilian Portuguese, the most common way to say I'm sorry is
Me desculpe.
On a daily basis, people often drop the pronoun me, saying just
Desculpe. But it can also be said me desculpa or simply desculpa.
Both ways are correct. Note that this variation is due to conjugation aspects, and it's not gender related. You can say both ways regardless of your gender. Let's listen.
Me desculpe. Desculpa.
It's very useful when you bump into someone when taking the busy subway lines of Sao Paulo. Let's practice a little.
Me desculpe.
Now you try.
Me desculpe.
Now let's try the variation.
Desculpa. Desculpa.
One last time.
Desculpa.
Great! Now you can say thank you, excuse me, and I'm sorry in Portuguese. Let's move on. Asking where something is an incredibly important and useful phrase to learn. You're going to need this when asking where the bathroom, the subway station, the bus stop, or where the hotel is.
To ask where something is, you should say onde fica? Then you should verify the gender of the location you want to know about, so you can place the proper article, feminine, a, or masculine, o. Onde fica a, o? Lastly, add the location. If you want to know where the bathroom is, you should say onde fica o banheiro?
The word for bathroom in Portuguese is a masculine gender. So, like Anna said, we put the definite masculine article o before the noun.
Onde fica o banheiro?
For the subway station, it'll be
Onde fica o metrô?
And so on. Just remember the gender to use the correct article. Let's see some vocabulary that you can use in this sentence. Here are some of the most common words you'll need to learn.
Banheiro.
Bathroom.
Banheiro. Onde fica o banheiro?
Next.
Metrô.
Subway.
Metrô. Onde fica o metrô?
If you ask this question, they'll direct you to the closest subway station. If you'd like to ask where a specific station is, simply place the name of the station after subway.
Onde fica o metrô Consolação?
Or you can just say station instead of subway.
Onde fica a estação Consolação?
Next.
Hotel.
Hotel. See that in Portuguese, H as the first letter is always silent, except for specific foreign loanwords.
Hotel. Onde fica o hotel?
For a specific hotel, do the same as before. Just place the name after hotel.
Hotel. Hotel Intercontinental. Onde fica o Hotel Intercontinental?
Next.
Padaria.
Bakery.
Bakeries, especially in São Paulo, are really popular. There are a lot of bakeries in the city, and they usually are a blend of a bakery, a deli, a coffee shop, a restaurant, and a pizza parlor, all in one place. Often, even a mini market as well, and sometimes acting as a bar at night. There are enormous franchise bakeries as well as smaller family ones. So knowing this is extremely useful, especially in São Paulo.
Okay, so how do we ask where the bakery is?
Onde fica a padaria?
You can substitute almost anything and simply add
Onde fica a
to ask where something is in Portuguese. In this final lesson, you learned how to say thank you, excuse me, I'm sorry, and to ask where something is in Portuguese. And in this series, we introduced you to the basics of Portuguese pronunciation, grammar, writing, and more. Let's conclude with some parting advice from Ana and listen to some of her tips on how to learn Portuguese from a native Brazilian perspective.
The best way to learn Portuguese, particularly if you want to improve your communication skills, is to watch and study contemporary Brazilian videos like soap operas and news programs. That way you can learn expressions and the peculiarities of pronunciation that you can't learn from regular grammar books and methods. A great way to learn, which is also pleasant, is studying with MPB, Brazilian popular music. Brazil is famous for its unique type of music, and the lyrics usually mix formal and informal Portuguese in a rich and poetic way. You can increase your vocabulary while enjoying good music and learning more about the country's culture and history. A big mistake I see learners make is not asking native speakers for help with the language. Brazilians are in general very warm and receptive, and they want to be polite, so they won't correct your grammar or pronunciation. They're usually flattered and happy to see the effort in Portuguese, so they reciprocate with doing their best to understand foreigners and not paying attention to their mistakes. Because of that, a lot of learners end up plateauing in their Portuguese by getting too comfortable. Don't do that. Ask your Brazilian friends and colleagues to help and correct you. Tell them it will not offend you. On the contrary, it will make you very happy. If you are not in Brazil, a tip is to browse the web for Brazilians who are willing to be your friends. It shouldn't be difficult. Practice your pronunciation a lot and try your best to remember noun genders. Make a list if you need. It's very common for learners to mix the genders up, as there is no exact rule to determine when a noun is masculine or feminine. Watching contemporary videos, such as our videos here at Portuguese Pod 101, will ensure that you are learning real, applicable Portuguese in the fastest and most effective way.
You've reached the end of this course, Introduction to Portuguese, but it's only the beginning of your journey to Portuguese fluency. Where do you go from here? Try our Portuguese in 3 Minutes series, where we teach you beginner vocabulary and even more useful phrases. Or check out any of our other video series. We have many different categories for you to choose from. Good luck as you continue learning Portuguese, and I'll see you in another video. Bye!
Bye!
How are your Portuguese listening skills? First, you'll see an image and hear a question. Next comes a short dialogue. Listen carefully and see if you can answer correctly. We'll show you the answer at the end. Are you ready?
O menino está lendo o seu diário. Qual foi a primeira coisa que o menino fez esse dia?
Estava um tempo bem gostoso hoje. Eu fui para a piscina à tarde e fui ver um filme à noite. Eu também estudei de manhã. Foi um dia muito bom.
Qual foi a primeira coisa que o menino fez esse dia? O menino está lendo o seu diário. Qual foi a primeira coisa que o menino fez esse dia?
Estava um tempo bem gostoso hoje. Eu fui para a piscina à tarde e fui ver um filme à noite. Eu também estudei de manhã. Foi um dia muito bom.
Did you get it right? I hope you learned something from this quiz. Let us know if you have any questions. See you next time. Hi everyone, I'm Gabriella. How are your Portuguese listening skills? In this video, you'll have a chance to test them out with a quiz. First, you'll see an image and hear a question. Next comes a short dialogue. Listen carefully and see if you can answer correctly. We'll show you the answer at the end. Are you ready?
Um homem está informando o desempenho das vendas da empresa numa reunião. Quais dois gráficos ele está usando na sua apresentação?
Por favor, vejam os documentos que eu distribuí. No gráfico da esquerda, temos as vendas da empresa nos últimos 3 anos e a previsão de vendas para o ano corrente. E no gráfico da direita, temos a análise mensal das vendas até outubro deste ano. Agora, por favor, deem uma olhada no gráfico da esquerda. Ele mostra que as vendas cresceram num ritmo constante nos últimos 3 anos. E se nós continuarmos a aumentar as nossas vendas, o total de vendas vai mostrar um avanço sobre o ano passado. Agora vamos ver o gráfico da direita. O gráfico da direita mostra que as campanhas publicitárias de abril e agosto foram muito eficientes.
Mas as vendas diminuíram em maio e setembro depois das campanhas.
É verdade, mas esse tipo de desempenho é inevitável. Mas eu tenho a expectativa de que as vendas anuais deste ano mostrem um aumento sobre o ano passado se nós continuarmos a aumentar nossas vendas.
Quais dois gráficos ele está usando na sua apresentação? Um homem está informando o desempenho das vendas da empresa numa reunião. Quais dois gráficos ele está usando na sua apresentação?
Por favor, vejam os documentos que eu distribuí. No gráfico da esquerda, temos as vendas da empresa nos últimos 3 anos e a previsão de vendas para o ano corrente. E no gráfico da direita, temos a análise mensal das vendas até outubro deste ano. Agora, por favor, deem uma olhada no gráfico da esquerda. Ele mostra que as vendas cresceram num ritmo constante nos últimos 3 anos. E se nós continuarmos a aumentar as nossas vendas, o total de vendas vai mostrar um avanço sobre o ano passado. Agora vamos ver o gráfico da direita. O gráfico da direita mostra que as campanhas publicitárias de abril e agosto foram muito eficientes.
Mas as vendas diminuíram em maio e setembro depois das campanhas.
É verdade, mas esse tipo de desempenho é inevitável. Mas eu tenho a expectativa de que as vendas anuais deste ano mostrem um aumento sobre o ano passado se nós continuarmos a aumentar nossas vendas.
Did you get it right? I hope you learned something from this quiz. Let us know if you have any questions. See you next time.
Hi everyone, welcome to your monthly review, the monthly show on language learning, where you discover new learning strategies, motivational tips, new study tools, resources, and where we show off learners like you speaking the language. That is, if you're brave enough to become language learning famous. All the materials mentioned in this video are available for you now on our website. Click the link in the description to sign up for your free lifetime account and start speaking in minutes. Okay, today's topic is the 10 habits of highly effective language learners. So, what do successful language learners, people who set language goals and actually hit them, do differently? And are you doing any of these things already? Let's get into it. You'll discover 10 powerful habits and how to apply them. I'll give you specific step-by-step examples. You can use these whether you're learning with our program or any other resource, a textbook, an app, or some audio program. Let's start with the first and most important one. Habit number 1, set small, measurable goals with deadlines. Why small goals? Well, say for example, you set big, vague goals, like I want to be fluent someday. And maybe you buy a textbook, you read the first chapter, then you start wondering if you're getting any better. You start worrying you'll never be fluent, and you give up. If you do this, you need to start setting small, measurable goals. For example, learn 100 words in a month, or speak 1 minute of conversation, or do 30 of our audio lessons in 1 month. Deadline November 30th. Okay, habit number 2, create a routine, because your routine is what will bring your goals to reality. This goes back to the first habit. Again, if you set a goal like doing 30 lessons in 1 month, you need to do 1 lesson a day and spend 15 minutes studying. Now you have a routine to stick to, 1 lesson a day, 15 minutes. Next, decide when and where you'll do it. Why? So you can make time. Make a mental note that this time is language time. And, this is important, say no to other things. Your language goals and dreams take first priority. Next, habit number 3, don't cram. Instead of cramming or forcing yourself to learn for 1 or 5 hours, start small. Cramming may have worked for you with studying for tests, but language learning is a marathon, not a sprint. So if you do 5 hours now, you'll burn yourself out. You'll hate the learning, and that's not good. That's how you fail at your goals and dreams. But if you can do 5 to 15 minutes a day, every day, learning won't be overwhelming, and you'll be successful in the long run. So, how do you create this habit? If you've set your small, measurable goal and routine, you're good to go. Habit number 4, prepare lines and conversations ahead of time. If you're like most language learners, speaking is your weak point. And a lot of the time, it's because you just don't know what to say. You don't have the words in your head. This is where preparation comes in. So imagine you meet a person for the first time. What do you say to each other? Hello, how are you? What's your name? Where are you from? What are your hobbies? If you prepare these questions and answers ahead of time, you then have things to ask and say. So how do you do this? If you're learning on the website, check out our top 25 questions lessons that teach you questions and answers that we use all the time in conversations. For example, what's your name? Where are you from? How old are you? How was your weekend? Another way to prepare is to make a list of questions or phrases you want to say. Then get the translations for those. The point is, if you prepare lines like, my name is, I am from, this weekend I did this, the kind of lines you use all the time, you'll always have something to say. Habit number 5, get into the habit of producing output. So input is taking language in, listening and reading, and output is putting language out, so speaking and writing. The point here is, it's easy to just sit and listen and watch YouTube videos. You can listen to lessons all day long, but listening helps with listening. It won't get you speaking the language. So the easiest ways to produce output are, for speaking, repeat what you hear out loud. That's called shadowing. And for writing, write things out by hand. You can copy out our lesson dialogues or just copy the sentences out of a textbook. Habit number 6, come back and review. And that's because reading something once doesn't mean it'll be in your brain forever. So this is where reviewing comes in. In order to master grammar, words, or phrases, you must go back and review. How do you do this? Spaced repetition flashcards are a great example of this. A lot of language learners use these because with spaced repetition, you get to see words again and again over spaced periods of time, and that improves your memory. Another simple thing you can do is download and save our lessons. Replay them later. Download our dialogue tracks. These give you just the conversation from that lesson, no translations. Make a playlist on your phone and listen as much as possible, just like with songs. Soon, you'll know tons of practical conversations by heart. Next, habit number 7, look for solutions. There's one interesting thing that separates new learners from successful learners. It's how they react when they don't understand something. Because beginners completely rely on the study tools they use, they tend to blame them too. You'll often hear that someone gave up because the textbook was too boring, or it won't help them speak. But if you realize a book won't help you speak, it's not the book's fault, is it? And if you complain that a class doesn't help you speak, but you're not raising your hand at every opportunity either, whose fault is it? So experienced learners look for solutions. Get into the habit of coming up with a solution for your problem. Habit number 8, focus on what you're good at. And you should do this because it's overall motivation. If you're generally better at speaking than writing, then you're more likely to enjoy it, which means you're more likely to continue with it. And that means it's a successful routine. Habit number 9 is don't procrastinate, which is easier said than done. Most of us procrastinate, and a lot of that is a result of overthinking. Let's say you plan on studying today. So you remember, I have to study. Now you're ruining it in your head. It becomes something you have to do. It's a hassle now. But if you set a small, measurable goal and have a simple routine, spend 5 minutes, then you know you just need to put in 5 minutes, and you're done. So if you want to beat procrastination, make your goals and routines easy. And number 10, remember that learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint. So there's no need to do 5-hour cram sessions and burn yourself out. 5 or 10 minutes is good enough. Remembering this is a good habit to have. If you're having a bad day, if you can't remember some grammar, it's not all over. It's just a minor bump in the road. Another thing that helps is considering the resources you use. Sticking with quick 5-minute lessons that are easy to finish will help keep you in the marathon. Now, speaking of lessons and resources, here are this month's new lessons and resources. First, the Ultimate Guide to Learning and Mastering Language ebook. This is a 52-page ebook that covers the learning tactics I just talked about: setting goals, staying motivated, learning faster. If you're interested in learning strategies, be sure to download it. Next, the Sport and Exercise Conversation Cheat Sheet. If you want to talk about sports and fitness in the language you're learning, then you'll love this PDF cheat sheet. And finally, How to Improve Your Speaking Skills. It's another language strategy lesson. To get these free lessons and resources, just click the link in the description below. All right, because this is the very first episode of the monthly review, we're asking you, yes you, to submit a video of yourself speaking the language. Here's the challenge for you. Yes, everyone watching this. Record a 30-second to 1-minute audio or video clip. Introduce yourself in the language. Share your name, where you're from, and why you're studying this language. And you'll win a 3-month Premium Plus subscription. To submit, click on the link in the description. Sign up for your free lifetime account. Then, fill out the form, attach the audio or video file, and press submit. We may feature you in next month's episode, so a lot of learners will see you and your progress, and will hopefully get inspired to improve and master the language. To submit a recording, click the link in the description and follow the instructions on the page. So, thank you for watching this episode of Monthly Review. Next time, we'll talk about why your worst days are the best days to study. In the meantime, submit your recording if you're brave. Like and share this video and leave a comment to tell us what language learning tactics you'd like us to talk about. See you next time. Bye! Want to master grammar so you can speak properly, express yourself better, and understand more? In this video, I'll show you how to master grammar with our lessons and learning program. Let's begin. Number 1. Listen to the lesson conversations and explanations. In every lesson, you learn a conversation. Then, our teachers break down every word and grammar rule. So you're actually learning grammar rules in the context of conversations, and you can easily see how they're used. Once you're done, review the conversation again and again to remember what you've learned. Number 2, read the bonus explanations and tutorials. With the lesson notes, you get extra grammar explanations and examples that are not presented in the lesson. After you're done with the lesson, read the lesson notes for extra review. You can even save them as PDFs so that you can access them anytime. Number 3, leave a comment on the lesson. Once you've learned a grammar point, be sure to use it. Leave a comment in the comments section. Write some example sentences for practice. Our teachers will review your comment and give you feedback. Number 4, unlock even more grammar lessons. If you want to find all of the grammar lessons available, visit our lesson library. Under Category, choose Grammar. You'll get all of the pathways and lessons dedicated to helping you learn and master sentence patterns and grammar points. So, if you're ready to finally learn a new language the fast, fun, and easy way, sign up for your free lifetime account by clicking on the link in the description. Signing up takes less than 30 seconds, and you'll start speaking from your very first lesson. If you enjoyed these tips, hit the like button, share it with anyone who's trying to learn a new language, and subscribe to our channel. We release new videos every week. I'll see you next time. Bye!
Oi, meu nome é Paloma. Hi everybody, I'm Paloma. Welcome to PortuguesePod101.com's Português em 3 minutos, the fastest, easiest and most fun way to learn Brazilian Portuguese. In the last lesson, we learned how to introduce ourselves in Portuguese. As good manners are a must everywhere, today we are going to learn how to thank people. Vocês estão prontos? Are you ready? Vamos começar. Then let's start. There are several ways to thank someone. Let's start with the most common phrase, obrigado. Obrigado. Obrigado means thank you. To say thank you very much, you just need to add muito in the beginning. Muito obrigado. Muito obrigado. Muito means a lot. So, muito obrigado is like saying thank you very much. In the last lesson, we saw that Portuguese words may vary according to gender. You say obrigado if you are a man. If you are a woman, you should say obrigada. Obrigada. When someone thanks you, how should you answer? There are a few things you can say. The first is de nada. De nada. This means it's nothing. You're telling the person that it's nothing worth thanking you for. There's another phrase that is often used to mean you're welcome in Portuguese. Disponha. It means welcome in English, but it's not used as often as de nada. Time for another quiz. What do you say in these situations? Muito obrigada. Muito obrigado. De nada. Now it's time for Paloma's point. In Brazil, we sometimes cut words when we are talking. For example, it's very common to hear brigado instead of obrigado. Don't get confused between brigado, that means fight, and brigado, thank you. Do you know what tudo bem means? In our next lesson, you'll learn this and some other greetings in Portuguese. Até a próxima!
Expand your vocabulary with our Core 2000 Words ebook. It's free and packed with essential expressions that you'll use on a daily basis. Start building your vocabulary today. Click the link in the description below to download your free Portuguese ebook before it's gone.